Hello and welcome to the programme. We're going to start with the words of the US President. So much of the future will be written in the Indo-Pacific. That's according to Joe Biden, who's just arrived in South Korea on the first stage of his visit to the region. American presidents have often talked about a pivot to Asia in a bid to counter the growing influence of China. Biden's presence clearly underscores that. His first stop was a semiconductor plant. There's worldwide competition for access to these components at the moment. And Biden will also travel to Japan during his 6-day trip. Speaking at the Samsung factory, Biden said it was time for Seoul and Washington to invest in each other.
So much of the future of the world is going to be written here in the Indo-Pacific over the next several decades. We're standing at an inflection point in history where the decisions we make today will have far-reaching impacts on the world we leave to our children tomorrow. This vibrant democracy has become a powerhouse of global innovation by investing in educating its people. And companies like Samsung that are driven by responsible development of technology and innovation will be critical to shaping the future in the direction of our two countries, the direction we both want to go. So this is the moment, in my view, to invest in one another, to deepen our business ties, to bring our people even closer together.
Right, let's take a look at the agenda for Biden's trip, which comes as the US faces growing influence in the region from China. The president is meeting South Korea's new leader, Yoon Suk-yeol, for the first time in person. Up for discussion for this part of the visit, North Korea. Pyongyang has abandoned its freeze on intercontinental ballistic missile testing, and the threat of nuclear testing looms, all while the country deals with a COVID-19 outbreak. And of course, China's growing influence is also expected to dominate discussions. I'm joined now by Sue Kim, policy analyst at RAND Corporation, who previously worked as a CIA intelligence officer analysing North Korea. Thanks so much for coming on the programme.
Thank you.
So we'll come to North Korea in just a second. I want to start with a broader look, though, at the influence of China. Biden's visit here clearly trying to cement ties with other countries in the region to try and provide some kind of buffer and block on China. How successful do you think he'll be?
So, this is actually, it's a buffer against China for the countries in the region, but I also think that this is also a buffer for the United States against China. In light of the challenges that we're facing with Russia, Ukraine, the conflict between democracies and anti-democracies, it says a lot about the priorities. And I think it's also a way for the United States to reaffirm alliances and also to reassure the countries in the world that the stand against China is not just going to be a U.S. versus China thing, but it's going to require concerted efforts by countries in the region who are concerned about the threat to democracies, but also a threat to their economic security, which was highlighted in the Biden-Yoon press conference after the Samsung visit.
Well, right, just on that then, is the way that the US is going to approach this is effectively by deepening those trade ties?
Exactly. So economic security, it's not just about, numbers, but it's also about what that represents in this day and age where China holds, I would say, a large market when it comes to controlling the economic dynamics with countries around the world. And the way for countries to reduce their dependence and to be able to stand up against China, not just on the financial aspects, but in terms of ideological values and what that represents for the rights of their citizens and more broadly, the political interests, is going to require a holistic approach to politics, to economics, to diplomacy. And this is, I think, one of the first small steps that South Korea could take to sort of show its stand between Washington and China in their long-term conflict, or competition, rather.
Yeah, and those images that we just saw as you were giving that answer there is one they'll be very pleased to see, that visit that you mentioned to the Samsung factory. I want to move now to North Korea, if we can, because the visit, first country, South Korea, new leadership in South Korea, expected to take a tougher stance on North Korea. Where does the US fit into this?
So President Yoon has highlighted on several occasions that his foreign policy is going to be centered around the US-ROK alliance. That's a positive sign for Biden, but I think there's going to be some steps that are going to be taken between the two countries. both countries announced that they were basically prepared for any North Korean provocation, whether that's a long range, short range, or nuclear test, which indicates, I think, their readiness. But of course, in case Kim Jong-un wants to steal the show, which would be a right opportunity now, it shows that, one, the two countries are aware, but I think it's also an opportunity for Washington and South Korea to use the North Korean provocation as an opportunity to highlight and to underscore the potential for the two allies to work together, to cooperate, and to better manage the North Korean deal.
I understand that opportunities to cooperate, but what actual responses will they be bringing forward if we see a ramping up of testing from North Korea?
So I think that's uncertain. Based on what we've seen from the United States and South Korea up to this point, the response has not been any different from what we'd expect to see from Washington and South Korea with respect to the provocations. I think what we're hoping to see is a more commensurate response. So if North Korea were to provoke with the nuclear test, we should be seeing more sanctions. We should be seeing the two countries cooperate on military issues. The United States beefing up South Korean defense capabilities in the region so that, one, it affirms the alliance, but two, it also gives South Korea, I would say, a more independent readiness to handle provocations from the North.
Fascinating stuff. A few more days left, 5 days left of this visit. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Sue Kim, great to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you.